Imagine you, married for 20 years, thinking you've built a perfect life with the person you love. But what if one day you discovered that your wife is having an affair, not just with someone else, but with your own niece, an 18-year-old girl you've always considered like a daughter? How would you react to seeing your trust shattered, your family crumbling before your eyes? This is the story of Michael, a man who discovered the deepest betrayal, one that comes from within his own home. Michael and Linda were considered the example of a perfect marriage in the neighborhood. Together for over 20 years, they shared a spacious and elegant home, raised 2 exemplary children, and maintained a life full of pleasant and predictable routine. Michael, a respected engineer, had always prided himself on how harmonious and stable his life seemed. He often expressed his contentment, like on that Sunday morning over coffee, affectionately telling Linda, "You know, dear, I really do believe we are incredibly lucky. Everything seems so perfect between us." Linda, a dedicated art teacher, would smile in response. But her smile hid secrets Michael had yet to notice. In recent months, he had started noticing small changes in her behavior. Linda's once warm and constant smile now occasionally seemed forced, and her outings to meet friends became more frequent and prolonged. Initially, Michael attributed the subtle changes in Linda's behavior to work stress or perhaps some midlife crisis. She was spending more time away from home, often going out with her niece, Alice, who had moved to the city to attend university. Alice was a vivacious, artistic young woman, very reminiscent of Linda in her younger days. Michael found it endearing how close the two were, until certain details started to bother him. One day, as he watched Linda getting ready to go out, he commented, trying to conceal his concern, "You and Alice seem to be enjoying those outings together, huh?" Linda smiled, adjusting her necklace in the mirror. "Oh yes, Michael. Alice is so creative and full of energy. She makes me feel young again." Linda's response was light, but Michael felt a pang of discomfort he couldn't ignore. This connection between them, though seemingly innocent, began to seem strangely intense to him. That's when Michael noticed Linda and Alice exchanging intense looks and whispers, behaviors he had never witnessed before. Intrigued and increasingly suspicious, he began paying closer attention. One day, as the two conversed in the kitchen, Michael silently approached and overheard something that made his heart race. Alice was whispering Aunt Linda, "Do you think he suspects anything?" And Linda was responding in a hushed, hurried tone, "No, Alice, we haven't done anything wrong, but we need to be careful." Michael, shocked by the exchange, purposefully made noise as he entered the kitchen, causing them both to instantly fall silent. He tried to appear nonchalant as he asked, "Suspect what, girls?" Linda, quickly regaining her composure, smiled and replied, "Oh, we were just planning a surprise for your birthday, dear. We don't want you to find out ahead of time." Michael forced a smile, but the seeds of doubt were already planted in his mind. A few days after that, upon arriving home and opening the bedroom door, Michael was confronted with a scene that shattered his heart and crumbled his reality. Linda and Alice were together in bed, in a way that left no doubt as to the nature of their relationship. The betrayal was twofold. Not only his wife, but also with someone he considered a daughter. The shock was so intense that Michael silently retreated, unable to confront the sight before his eyes. Yet something inside him snapped, and he couldn't contain himself. "Linda, what is going on here?" His voice trembled with a mix of anger and despair. Linda, completely caught off guard, stumbled over her words. "Michael, this isn't what it looks like." Alice, equally shocked, merely covered herself with the sheet, unable to look at him. "How is this not what it looks like, Linda? How could you do this to our family?" Michael shouted, his voice echoing off the bedroom walls as the weight of the betrayal consumed him more and more. In the days that followed, Michael found himself navigating a storm of emotions. Anger and sadness intermingled with disbelief. He didn't know how to confront Linda or what to do next. The trust he had in his wife and family was shattered. In his heart, a decision began to take shape, one that promised to be as shocking as the discovery he had made. As he contemplated his options, Michael sat at the kitchen table, his thoughts interrupted only by the sound of his own sighs. Finally, with teary eyes, he vented alone, speaking out loud to no one. How could she do this to me? After everything we built together. His voice was a mix of sadness and resolution. I need to do something that shows her the pain she caused me, something they'll never forget. Those words seemed to seal his fate as he meticulously planned every step of his revenge. Consumed by pain and betrayal, Michael spent sleepless nights plotting his revenge. He knew direct confrontations or public scandals wouldn't be enough to quell the storm within him, so he began devising a more subtle, devastating plan. Michael decided to use Linda's own talent against her, sabotaging the art exhibition she had been preparing for months, an exhibition that promised to be the pinnacle of her career. One night, as Linda slept, Michael, in his office, muttered to himself as he navigated his computer, altering orders and sending fake emails. Let's see how you'll feel when everything you've worked for comes crumbling down. Each click was a relief for his anger, each action a step in his meticulous vengeance. Skillfully, Michael began to subtly interfere with the exhibition preparations. He swapped Linda's paints for inferior quality ones, altered the delivery schedules for her works, and spread rumors in the art world about the alleged lack of originality in her work. Meanwhile, he also began subtly undermining Alice's academic reputation among her professors and peers, discreetly tarnishing her ethical and moral standing with insinuations. In a chance encounter with an influential art critic in town, Michael casually commented, "It's amazing how some ideas seem recycled, don't you think? Especially in the work of new artists, and even some established ones." These remarks, made with a tinge of veiled sarcasm, were calculated to sow doubts and suspicions, slowly eroding Linda and Alice's credibility in the artistic and academic community. The day of the exhibition arrived, and Linda was radiant, oblivious to Michael's meticulous sabotage. As the hours passed, however, the flaws began to show. The colors of the painting started to fade or blend in unexpected ways, provoking murmurs and confused looks among the critics and guests on. Linda, perplexed, her confusion turning to despair as she realized something was terribly wrong. She rushed from one work to another, trying to understand what had happened. "This can't be happening," she muttered to herself, almost in tears. One of the critics approached, frowning, and asked, "Linda, what happened to your works? This doesn't look anything like what you showed us before." His voice was one of concern mingled with veiled criticism. Linda, struggling to maintain her composure, merely stammered an excuse, feeling completely betrayed, not knowing the betrayal came from within her own home. Simultaneously, Alice faced her own collapse. Her recent works were harshly criticized for plagiarism, an accusation arranged by Michael that she struggled to refute. The young woman, who had started her academic year with enthusiasm and brilliance, saw her world crumble as her grades fell and her mentors distanced themselves. In a meeting with one of her professors, Alice tried to defend herself, tears in her eyes. "I would never copy anyone's work, Professor. Everything I did was original, I swear." The professor, looking at her with a mixture of pity and skepticism, responded softly. Helpless and isolated, Alice felt the crushing weight of the circumstances manipulated by Michael, who watched from afar with cold, calculated satisfaction. Michael observed the consequences of his actions with somber satisfaction. He had planned every detail, so the impact on Linda and Alice would be devastating, but not public enough to backfire on him. Deep down, he knew none of this would bring back the peace or love he had lost, but revenge provided a cold consolation. On a quiet night, as he looked out the window of his office, Michael muttered to himself, "This is justice. It's exactly what they deserve." His voice was laden with unwavering certainty. Although he felt an emptiness where love once resided, he consoled himself with the idea that order had been restored in some twisted way. The house, now quieter and lonelier than ever, echoed not only the absence of Linda and Alice, but of any joy that had once dwelled there. In the months that followed, as Linda and Alice faced the consequences of their actions, Michael felt a profound satisfaction. Every news of Linda's struggle to regain her footing in the art world, and every account of Alice's academic failure brought a smile to his face. Michael considered his revenge not only justified, but extremely effective. Watching the downfall of the two people who had so deeply hurt his heart gave him a relief and happiness he hadn't felt in a long time. In his heart, he felt justice had been served, and with that, he could finally begin rebuilding his life, free from the weight of betrayal. They finally understood the pain they caused. He remarked to a friend in a rare moment of openness, "And me, I'm finally free to move on." And what would you do in Michael's place? Comment on what you would do. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to keep following more stories like this one. See you in a new story.